Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot happening again this week. We're going to check out card prices, what's hot, what's cold throughout the secondary market. But as you can imagine, there's some influence due to those early Throne of Eldraine previews we saw this week. Especially some of the cards from the Brawl decks are having an impact. You'll see that as we go through the video. Also, last weekend was the first weekend of competitive play since the banned and restricted list was updated. The metagame shifts are impacting prices as well, and a whole lot more. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you're looking to pick up Throne of Eldraine booster boxes, they do have them for pre-order on FlipsideGaming.com. If you use the Heroes promo code, you can save a little cash while you support the channel. They also have a few sets of Commander 2019 decks. They have restocked those. There's just a few left, but I know some folks are still looking for them. So check it out and you might be able to grab one. Without any further ado though, let's get into it. Okay, we're going to begin as we always do with Standard with the top 5 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5 is Crucible of Worlds from Magic 2019. This goes down $1.02 to $22.96 this week. So this is rotating out of Standard. That could be part of the reason it's soft. Although it didn't really ever see Standard play, there was just no support around it in the environment. However, another reason it could be soft is when you look at that first weekend of Modern play since the banned and restricted list update, percentage play on this card was down a little bit. Still out there, still doing good in the format. Definitely you'll find this in Tron builds in some capacity, whether it's 1 or 2 copies between the main and the side. Also, other competitive decks will run it there. This sees Legacy play too, not to mention Commander and Casual play. This will lose a little value, but I think it will stabilize quickly. Number 4 is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, down $1.03 to $23.96. This card has been a big player in Standard ever since it was released. It has softened up recently, though, due to the fact that it is creeping up on rotation. Now, we saw something weird last week, though. The card jumped back up again. Why was that? Because of the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic in Modern. There were a lot of players speculating that Azorius control builds, which of course run this card, might want to throw in a Stoneforge package, and that combined with Faithless Looting and Hogak being banned could mean that this becomes one of the better decks in the format. In the meantime, though, I think this card will stay relatively stable, maybe losing a little value as a lot of the Standard players do try to get rid of their copies. But if the Azorius control deck starts to emerge as one of the bigger Modern decks, then it could stabilize quickly, maybe even start to go up again. Number 3 is Scape Shift. Morningtide goes down $1.02 to $20. Magic 2019 goes down $1.08 to $16.99. Another card that is rotating out of Standard very soon. It had a big season. Banned Scape Shift decks are still doing very well in the meta, but this won't lose all its value after it rotates because, of course, it is a good Modern card too. Currently, it's been doing well in Titan Shift as well as Bring to Light Scape Shift. Number 2, Leyline of the Void. Magic 2011 down 91 cents to 24.63. Magic 2020 down $1.11 to 15.22. Guild Pack down $1.80 to 34.90. So this is a card that hasn't seen a whole lot of Standard play, but it's not rotating out yet. It's going to be sticking around, and I do think now that we know we're going to be visiting the underworld of Theros in the not too distant future, this card definitely will have a role in Standard. But the reason this card is taking such a big hit is the bannings that occurred in Modern. Losing Faithless Looting, losing Hogak means a lot less people are focused on graveyard strategies. A lot of folks were actually playing this in the main deck, much less the sideboard, because graveyard strategies were so strong. We also saw last week, without Faithless Looting, the Phoenix decks weren't doing that great either. So this is still a good card to own if you play Legacy, if you play Modern, just to have as a sideboard card, but it's not as critical as it was just a couple weeks back. Number 1, I gave you a little foreshadowing. Arclight Phoenix down 360 to 1602. A couple things to consider about this card. This was a great Standard card. It's not rotating out, but it's not doing a whole lot. This season it kind of fell off. You don't see a lot of Is It Phoenix decks in the environment right now. That could definitely change next season though. Secondly, there's a lot of extra copies of this card out there because there was the Arcane Tempo Challenger deck which had a copy of this in there. So it pushed extra copies into the marketplace, just making it a little bit easier to get this mythic from Guilds of Ravnica. Now, the big reason it's losing this kind of value, of course, is what I just mentioned. Losing Faithless Looting in Modern was a huge blow to this card when it comes to the playability there. Is It Phoenix did not do very well at all last week. Gruul Phoenix, Mono Red Phoenix also struggled quite a bit. So I do think unless somebody can quickly figure out a workaround for losing Faithless Looting in those builds, this card stands to lose a little more value, at least in the short term. We'll have to kind of see what it does next season in Standard. Okay, on to the top 5 core set 2020 cards not found in booster packs that have gained value this week. I'll do this quickly because I don't want to drive this point home too long, but this is my public service announcement I do every week. Do not overpay for these cards. Simply, there's a bunch of cards from core set 2020 that cannot be found in the regular booster packs. They're either found in the Spellslinger starter kit, the Planeswalker decks, or the welcome decks, which game stores give to new players for free. Now, because you don't have a lot of online sellers breaking those decks up to sell singles, some of these cards have been inflated in price. Don't pay inflated prices for these things. Either go to your LGS, maybe buy some singles, trade with people, wait for the hype to die down, but don't overpay. Number 5 is Twin Blade Paladin, up 54 cents to $1.89. This is actually a pretty decent commander card if you're playing a life gain strategy. It's also a human knight, which could become more relevant, more on that later in the video. Now, you can find 3 copies of this, though, in the Ajani Planeswalker deck. My advice would be, if you want this card for Commander, go to your LGS, see if they sell it as a single. If they don't, just buy the Planeswalker deck, help them out a little bit, take those extra 2 copies, put them in your trade binder, or give them to a friend, teach them how to play Magic. Number 4 is a similar card, Thirsting Bloodlord, up 83 cents to $3.98. This one's more expensive, but this is another good casual card. Like, I would totally throw this in a kitchen table vampire deck, or toss it into my Commander Vampire deck that's even a more serious build. This one you can find 3 copies of in the Sorin Planeswalker deck. Number 3, Hostile Minotaur, goes up $1.40 to $1.99. Again, don't pay that price. You can get 2 copies of this one in the Spellslinger starter kit. Number 2, Woodland Mystic. This goes up $1.52 to $3.72. This is a weird one. This is actually a brand new Magic card. It's never been printed before, but the only place to get it is in the Green Welcome deck. There's just 1 copy in there. Number 1 is Oakenform. Another card in that Green Welcome deck is a single. It goes up $2.60 to $4.39. Okay, let's move on to the top 5 standard legal cards that have gained value this week. Before we get into our top 5, though, I do have 3 honorable mentions. The first one is Cavalier of Flame. It goes up 33 cents to $2.76. So not a huge price increase, but percentage-wise, it's pretty high. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. One is because it is a knight, and like I promised, I will talk more about that a little bit later. But long story short, one of the Brawl decks is Knight focused, and there's actually a pretty interesting front-facing commander there we found out this week that you might want to play in a regular Commander Knight build. So more on that later, but there's another reason this one's going up, and maybe a bigger reason for this particular card. It is seeing play as an upgrade card to Merciless Rage, the new Commander 2019 deck. Aside from that, people are also adding this to their Gerard Weatherlight hero builds. That is another new Commander 2019 card. That one's from Mystic Intellect. But there are even more Throne of Eldraine previews that could paint a bright future for this card. This will play well in Commander or Brawl with Corvold, Fey Curse King. This preview card is the front-facing commander from the Savage Hunter Brawl deck. Or it could have increased standard potential due to some of the knights they previewed, including Inspiring Veteran. Second honorable mention is Finale of Devastation. It goes up 36 cents to $12.48. So this one isn't really moving because of standard, but because of modern. Devoted Devastation decks have looked great in the format. They still look good last week, even though the meta has shifted a little bit. And there are some of them running Stoneforge Mystic packages, so that's something to keep an eye on. Our third honorable mention is Hallowed Fountain. This is the original one, though, from Dissension. It goes up 42 cents to $26.05. This has been the hottest Shockland recently, and here's why. Standard had a huge standard season. Some of the big decks early on, Bant Scapeshift, Esper Control, Bant Ramp. But then more recently, 4-color Legends has become a thing. A lot of people have been building that deck over the last couple weeks, even though rotation is coming. Modern is another huge influencer on this card this week. Basically, there's a number of decks that could perform well in the future that want to have this in their mana base. One example is some of the Urza Thopter decks. Not all of them run white, but if you want Teferi Time Raveler in your deck, you probably want this in your mana base. Now beyond that, with the changes, there's other modern decks that are just more appealing now than they were a couple weeks ago. Some examples of that would be Azorius Control. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of folks are trying to put Stoneforge packages in there. And even without Stoneforge, just with the changes to the home meta, the deck stands to be better. Spirit builds are falling into that same situation too. You're starting to see some people toy with Stoneforge packages there as well. And there's other decks too that could rise up because of the changes. Number 5, Villas Broker of Blood, up 48 cents to $4. A card that stands to get better in the future of Standard, again, especially if there's more graveyard shenanigans coming when we get to Theros. However, the reason this is going up this week is because of Commander. We mentioned last week this card is incredible with Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth, which is one of the new Commander 2019 cards. That one can be found in Merciless Rage, but you do see a lot of folks right now building mono black decks around that card. Also, this is a good upgrade just generally to the Merciless Rage deck. On top of that, this got another mention on the Command Zone this week for its synergy with Carrick, but also as an option to throw into a Grevin Predator Captain build. Number 4, Assassin's Trophy, up 70 cents to $15.84. This is seeing a little standard play. Recently, it's picked up slightly because of 4-color Legends. Sometimes you'll find it in the side there. Also, I have seen more people playing Golgari mid-range with Bolas' Citadel. That deck will want this. But really, the movement here is because of Modern this week. The upheaval with the changes means decks like Jund, Devoted Company, The Rock, they could just be better. This is a card you'll find in those builds typically. In Legacy, too, this is in Depths builds and 4-color control. Number 3, Llanowar Elves, but this is the one from Battle Royale. It goes up $1.04 to $2.85. Just a weird market anomaly here. Last week it went down. This week it goes back up. Number 2 is Stomping Ground. This goes up $1.37 to $20.67. This is the one from Guild Pact. This gets a little standard play in Night Feather, but again, it's all about Modern right now. Decks like Jund, Rainbow Nib Mizzet, Titan Shift, all possibly getting better now, and this is in those and many more. Number 1 is a card rotating out of standard. How is that possible? Zakama, Primal Calamity. It goes up $1.42 to $14.94. Okay, this sees a little standard play in the side of the Goldos Nexus deck, but this is really all about Commander. Atla Palani Nest Tender from Primal Genesis. Really cool commander. A lot of folks are building around that card right now. Many times you find Zakama in that build. Also, this plays really well with Sanctum of Eternity, another new Commander 2019 card found in Merciless Rage. Okay, on to Modern, with the top 5 Modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5, Chalice of the Void from Modern Masters goes down $3.11 to $75.99. This is just some retraction. This card has been super hot. It was going up as recently as a week ago. And yeah, you're just seeing it sort of stabilize, find its price point. The card is amazing. Tron builds, Eldrazi builds, Affinity, and more. Also in Legacy, you'll find this in Mono Red Prison, 4-color Loam. Sees Vintage play too, even though it is restricted there. I do think it's going to see a little less percentage play in Modern because of the new meta, but regardless, the card will always be extremely sought after. Number 4, Jace the Mind Sculptor from Worldwake goes down $3.31 to $141.27. Okay, so last week, this card had a huge spike. Again, you're seeing normalization here as everything starts to even out a little bit. A lot of hype around Stoneforge Mystic last week. That's why you saw these cards jumping up. The speculation being the meta's changing, Faithless Looting's gone. Decks that play Jace, some of these control builds could get better. Then throw in a Stoneforge Mystic package here or there. Those decks might be the best decks in the format. After looking at last week's results, maybe. There's still a lot of good decks. There was a lot of variety last week. The meta is really going to have to figure itself out. But for right now, this card's at a very high price point because of the spike. It was bound to come back down. I do think it's going to lose a little more value before it does stabilize. Asking over $140 for this card is still quite a bit. Remember though, this also sees play in Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Oathbreaker. It's all over the place. Number 3, Sword of Feast and Famine from Mirrodin Besieged goes down $3.40 to $65.98. Another card that had a huge spike last week because of Stoneforge Mystics unbanning. So how did it do last weekend? Actually not bad. We saw this in some high-performing decks, including Azorius Control and Selesnya Eldrazi. Also remember this does see play sometimes in Azorius Stoneblade decks and Legacy, and it's a great commander card regardless. Number 2 is Scalding Tarn from Modern Masters 2017. It goes down $4 to $95.97. Again, you're just seeing more stabilization and retraction on a very high-priced card, but it does see a ton of play. It's in some potentially great decks now in Modern. Burn, Urzethopter Sword, Grixis Death Shadow. Legacy, you'll find this in 4-color Delver and more. Even in Vintage, this is in Paradoxical Outcome. Number 1 is Wrenn and 6, down $4.76 to $95. And kind of the same story here. This card got super inflated recently with all the anticipation of how the format was going to change. Card is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I do think it will stabilize down a little bit more over time. This is in big decks. Jund, Rainbow Nib Mizzet, 2 decks that potentially get better now in the Modern format. Legacy, though, is maybe where this really shines. 4-color Delver, lands, 4-color Control, 4-color Loam, and more there. Okay, let's move on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Blood Clock. This goes up $5.13 to $6.27. If you're asking yourself, what is Blood Clock? Well, there it is on the screen. But it is a card that plays well with Adventures, the new mechanic that we saw revealed this week in its entirety from Throne of Eldraine. So yes, I do think with Adventures, at least casually in Commander decks or what have you, this is going to be a very good card. This also plays well with a couple of the Throne of Eldraine Brawl commanders, perhaps in a future commander build. One is Tulane, Teller of Tales, which we've been seeing for a number of weeks now. That's going to be in the Wild Bounty Brawl deck. And the other is a Fairy commander, which we will look at a little bit later. Number 4, Sword of the Meek, goes up 514 to 2887. There's a Thopter Sword right now, very popular deck. It was good before the changes in the format, looking even better now. Number 3 is Mox Opal. This is the one from Modern Masters 2015. It goes up $870 to $114.68. This price won't hold. It will definitely stabilize down. This is a pretty big jump, but the card might be looking better than ever in Modern right now. Again, there's a Thopter Sword will run this. Hardened Scales runs this. Classic Affinity runs it. We're Prison. Charge Tron, a newer deck that people are excited about. Also sees Legacy and Vintage play. Number 2, Sword of Light and Shadow. We saw this going up last week, still going up. Modern Masters up $971 to $65. Darksteel up $1331 to $59.99. Okay, so out of the cards played with Stoneforge Mystic last weekend, this is the one I probably saw the least of when it comes to the top performing decks. I saw Sword of Fire and Ice, spoiler alert. I also saw a lot of Batterskull, Sword of Feast and Famine. But this one is kicking around. It showed up in a Death and Taxes build, a BAMP midrange build, and some more. Also sees a little Legacy play, and it actually would be good in Commander with the upcoming Korvold Fey Curse King, which we saw earlier. And number 1, Sword of Fire and Ice. Darksteel goes up $1.53 to $87. Modern Masters goes up $15.10 to $101.89. Wow, breaking the $100 mark. So this is the sword I saw the most in the top performing decks in Modern last weekend with Stoneforge. This was usually accompanied by Batterskull. This was in Orzhov Smallpox, Devoted Devastation, Selesnya Eldrazi, Orzhov Stoneblade, Azorius Spirits, and more. These were all decks running Stoneforge Mystic packages. Legacy, this still sees play in Maverick and Death and Taxes too. Okay, on to our Vintage Spotlight. This is where we look at cards that are played in 93-94, Vintage, Legacy, and also cards that are important to collectors. First, we have Mana Drain from Legends up $837 this week to $187.45. This card has been climbing up. Good Vintage card, good Commander card. Lady Evangela from Legends. This is on the reserve list. It goes up $17.43 this week to $66.12. This one kind of felt like a buyout to me more than anything. Next is Fast Bond from Unlimited. Goes up $25.03 to $89.99. So this is on the reserve list, and it was reprinted though one other time after this in revised. Last week we saw the revised copy going up. This week is the Unlimited copy. This has recently been unrestricted in Vintage, so even though I haven't seen a lot of big results yet, a lot of folks are trying to build around this. Time Twister from Unlimited, also on the reserve list, of course. This goes up $853.43 to $4,254.45. The main reason we saw this jump this week is because we saw higher grade copies out there on the marketplace. There's not very many of these for sale at any given time. It's really hard to find market data. That's why they get so jumpy back and forth. This happens to be a week where you just had those higher grade copies out there. Okay, on to our Commander Spotlight. So I'll go kind of quick through these cards, just try to give you the main reasons why these are going up in value. There's always a lot of them. Cabal Coffers from Torment goes up $1.08 to $49.39. Super hot recently because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. So many Commander players right now are building around that card. Vidalcan Orrery. No surprise this is going up. This is a huge Commander card, and we're getting so many new Commander toys to play with. More people are just going to be interested in this. Conspiracy goes up $1.04 to $30.96. Fifth Dawn up $1.10 to $30.53. Okay, so Commander 2019 has been a catalyst for this. This is going to play well with a whole bunch of cards that came out in that particular product, but a couple that jump right into my mind are Kadena Slinking Sorcerer from Faceless Menace and Chainer Nightmare Adept from Merciless Rage. Beyond that, I have been mentioning these Throne of Eldraine Brawl decks that were revealed this week. And even though, yes, they are Brawl decks, a lot of people are thinking about taking some of those cards and building around them in Commander. One of those would be pretty good with this, especially Alila, Artful Provocateur. She is that Fairy Brawl Commander again. More on that card in just a minute. Scion of Una, this is the one for Modern Masters. It goes up $1.14 to $6.65. So one of the Throne of Eldraine Brawl decks is called Fairy Schemes. Also wanted to point out that even beyond that Brawl deck, we saw previews with other fairies in them. And it looks like there's a fair amount of fairies in the set. Definitely has people thinking about Commander builds. And in case you missed her this week, Alila, Artful Provocateur. I know I've teased this a couple times now, but this is one of the key preview cards pushing fairies this week. And it won't be the last time you hear her name in this video. How about right now? Secluded Glen is next. It goes up $1.18 to $11.68. Of course, this is moving up because of Alila and because of fairies. Now, this is a fairy-centric dual land from lore when it was a rare there, has not been reprinted yet. I'll use my one per video. We know that cards from this time period of Magic did have a lower print run compared to other modern era Magic sets. So when there's a little demand on some of these cards, they do tend to spike. Håkon Stromgald's Scourge. This is a new one to the Market Watch. It goes up $1.21 to $7.69. So why is this increasing in value? Well, we talked about a fairy deck. There's also a Night Brawl deck. That is called Knight's Charge. And the featured commander is Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. Magic players love tribal. If you're going to go ahead and hand out legendary creatures that care about certain tribes like this one, there is definitely going to be people trying to build commander decks around it. Keep an eye on knights and equipment in the coming weeks. Next we have Last Chance. Portal goes up $1.01 to $16.27. Starter $19.99 goes up $1.21 to $11.60. Now granted, these cards are getting harder and harder to find in good condition. That could be part of the reason they're going up in value this week. But they do play very well with one of the new Commander 2019 cards, Sudden Substitution from the Faceless Menace deck. Pure Steel Paladin goes up $1.33 to $13.40. I bet you can guess why. Yep. Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale, is affecting this card too, as well as some of the other knights previewed, like Inspiring Veteran, which we saw earlier. Now, this has been a hot commander card recently because of Colossus Hammer anyway, and this also sees play in SRAM O's in Modern. Wormcoil Engine, this is the one from Commander Anthology Volume 2. It goes up $1.35 to $33.20. Now, this is the harder to find copy of the card, obviously, but sometimes those harder to find copies, when they start to move up or down, that could be an indication of other copies moving soon too. This card already sees a lot of commander play. As a matter of fact, Dockside Extortionist from Commander 2019, you can find that one in the Mystic Intellect deck, that is also pushing some of these artifact cards in Commander. Might not be bad with Corvold Fey Curse King either. Also, this is a huge modern card. Tron builds, which actually, believe it or not, might get better in the new meta. Beyond that, it is an Amulet Titan, Mono Red Prison, and even sees a little vintage play. Summoner's Egg goes up $1.39 to $3.95 as players are trying to build around Outlaw Plani Nest Tender and Commander. Bitter Blossom from Ultimate Masters goes up $1.42 to $49.95. Sure, this sees a little modern, vintage, and legacy play, but really, again, it's moving this week because of Throne of Eldraine previews. Una, Queen of the Fae from Shadowmoor. Here's another one moving because of the new fairy cards previewed this week. Up $1.44 to $12.21. We're seeing a lot of tribal fairy cards taking off now. Sarah's Sanctum. This is a reserve list card, up $2 to $109.93. Now this could be going up just because it's a reserve list card, but I've already seen early Alila Artful Provocateur Commander deck lists. This happens to be in a number of them. Jet Medallion from Tempest. It goes up $2.18 to $19.90. This card has been hot for a number of weeks now because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. Mycosynth Lattice from Battle Bond goes up $2.32 to $59.80. So yes, Karn, the Great Creator, was restricted in Vintage, but that's not holding this card back. Still sees play in Modern, Legacy, and Vintage with Karn. Not to mention another card that was restricted in Vintage recently that made this better too in multiple formats, Mystic Forge. Also in Commander. And yes, another card that might be getting pushed a little bit by Dockside Extortionist. Knight Exemplar, another Knight Lord, which of course is moving because of these Throne of Eldraine previews this week. I'm telling you, keep an eye on Knights and Fairies these coming weeks, especially as we see more preview cards. Dual Decks Knights vs. Dragons goes up $2.30 to $8. Magic 2011 goes up $2.36 to $7.83. Bramble Sovereign goes up $2.39 this week to $19.20. Even though this doesn't directly interact with tokens, there are people putting this in as an upgrade for their Primal Genesis Commander 2019 deck. Might not be bad with Chilean Teller of Tales either. Apex Altasaur goes up $2.43 this week to $4.99. You can find this in the Faceless Menace Commander 2019 deck. This is the only Commander 2019 card that is going up significantly this week. Most of the rest are pretty soft, especially your high price cards, because obviously the product is now getting out into the hands of the players and things are starting to come down a little bit. But this one is going up. Why is that? Mostly because it's a dinosaur. You can throw this right into your dinosaur tribal build. This also might not be bad with Chilean Teller of Tales. Gaia's Cradle. This is another reserve list card, although it did get a reprinting as a Judge promo and foil before they closed that loophole on the reserve list. It goes up $3.58 this week to $359.98. Great commander card, also sees legacy play in Elves and Maverick. Necropotence. This card has been so hot 2 weeks in a row now. Ice Age goes up $1.05 to $14.04. Eternal Masters up $1.48 to $15. Iconic Masters up $4.10 to $16.55. 5th edition up $4.21 to $16.64. And you guessed it, this is very sought after right now as people are building around Carrick, son of Yawgmoth. Cloud Key goes up 431 to 2260. This is getting expensive. A lot of that is because this is a rare from Future Sight and it has yet to be reprinted. Now, this is a great commander card in a lot of different builds. In the future, it could be good with both Alila, Artful Provocateur, and Chillane, Teller of Tales, but recently it's been pushed because of Urza, Lord High Artificer, and also some of the colorless builds have been better ever since Mystic Forge came out. This is a card to keep an eye on. If it doesn't get reprinted at some point pretty soon, it could get even more expensive. World Gorger Dragon, Eternal Masters goes up 314 to 821, Judgment goes up 470 to 643. Again, you have a card that doesn't have a big supply out there necessarily in the marketplace going up in value this week. A lot of players are using this as an upgrade in Merciless Rage, and also some folks are just building around Anji Falconwrath and putting this card in that build too. Angus McKenzie going up again, 901 to 209. This is on the reserve list, and this is actually a pretty good commander card in Pillow Fort. Okay, let's move on to our Pauper Spotlight. First, we have Stonehorn Dignitary up 10 cents to 61 cents. This does see a little modern play, but it's showing up more and more in these Tron builds in Pauper. Muddle the Mixture up 17 cents to 360. You're going to find this in Secret of the Way control decks and more. Chromatic Star from Time Spiral goes up 22 cents to 620. So is this moving because of Pauper or because of Modern? Maybe a little of both. In Modern, this is in big decks right now. Urza Thopter Sword and Tron. In Pauper, though, it's in Affinity, Tron, and more. Expedition Map from Modern Masters 2015. This goes up 24 cents to 534. Kind of the same question here. This is in Modern Tron builds. It's also in Pauper Tron builds, though. And it sees a little legacy play, too. Okay, on to our Premium Spotlight. I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on rare foils or rare promo cards because they can be misleading sometimes. You don't always get a lot of good data online when it comes to sales. However, I like to spotlight at least one card that feels like it's at least moving along with the market. This week, it's Cloud Key. This is the foil from Future Sight going up 57.19 to 99.99. We already discussed why this card has been going up, but it just feels like the foil's completely dried up this week. That wraps up the Market Watch for this week. Starting on Monday, Throne of Eldraine previews will be coming out every day up until they finally release the full set within a couple weeks. We'll be covering those cards as we always do, and next Saturday, of course, we'll have another episode of the Market Watch. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.